One of a child's first lessons in manners is the reminder to say thank you. These words, first framed as good manners, as we grow older, contain the seed of a much deeper spiritual practice of gratitude. When nurtured and cultivated, gratitude can profoundly shape our lives. Functional MRI scans have shown that gratitude activates key areas of the brain, causing it to release dopamine and serotonin. These chemical shifts reduce stress, ease anxiety and depression, and can even improve our sleep. Expressing gratitude in a consistent way can rewire the brain as our focus shifts away from scarcity and fear towards connection and appreciation. Once again, 21st century science echoes Jesus' first century teaching. Expressing gratitude makes us whole. At least that is one takeaway from today's gospel, in which the lone Samaritan among the group of 10 men cured of their skin disease returns to Jesus, falls at his feet, and lavishes him with praise and thanksgiving. Jesus notes that this foreigner is the only one who comes back to thank him. And Jesus tells the man he's not only cured of his disease, but also that his faithful act of thankful return has healed him. It has made him whole. The Gospels make clear that even though Samaritans and Jews shared Israelite ancestry, they had separate communities and institutions, and they did not get along. But Jesus is not bothered by the barriers that separate them. He heals, forgives, consoles, regardless of race or religious status, as he does for this so-called stranger, the Samaritan. And when this man returns to thank Jesus, any notion of estrangement disappears, and tribal rules and entrenched stereotypes are revealed as irrelevant. Jesus exercises the radical new order he has in mind for the world as he freely bestows his healing and grace without regard to status or stigma. The xenophobia of his day and of our own day becomes xenophilia for Jesus. Where we are afraid of strangers, Jesus befriends them. Wherever opportunity strikes, Jesus mends the division and isolation we bring upon ourselves and impose upon others with our exclusionary ways. But Jesus never forces his way upon anyone. He prepares the way, creates the conditions for love, and extends to us an open invitation to walk in his way. We either turn towards it or we don't. Accepting his way of love involves a turning and returning, similar to the Samaritan's act of return. When we open our hearts in gratitude and give thanks to God for everything in our lives, it not only feels good, it heals us and makes us whole. Giving thanks is inherently relational. It forges a bond of mutual belonging between the giver and the receiver. When we acknowledge the gifts we are given daily of life, breath, of sunlight, of food and drink, we acknowledge that our lives are wrapped up in the giver of life. Maybe it's admitting our dependence is what makes it hard sometimes for us to express thanks with our whole hearts. We've been conditioned to bristle at the idea of depending on another being. Especially in our American culture, we idealize this notion of individuality and independence. We're too proud, thinking we depend on ourselves alone. Or we're too humble, thinking we could be a burden if we depend on others. But the belief that we can be truly independent is an illusion. While we are busy feeding that illusion that we exist independent of God and of each other, we are becoming only more alienated from God and from one another. There's only a fine line between alienation and independence. Our true choice is really between alienation and interdependence. Interdependence is the sense of belonging, not just to God, but also to one another. Our lives are woven together. Once again, 21st century science has shown that to be true also. We are genetically 99.9% the same, and we all depend together upon this one planet and its resources to sustain our lives. Alienation from God, from ourselves, and from the rest of nature is leading to our downfall. I'm well aware that we all experience situations in life that are true hardships. Many of us are carrying heavy burdens for which it is difficult, if not downright impossible, to feel grateful. But there is a French proverb that says, "Gratitude is the heart's memory." To me, this means that a practice of gratitude forges the enduring memory in our hearts that we are bound to God and to one another. And gratitude seen in this light sees us through many hard things as it opens our hearts to divine possibility. As the courageous writer and Holocaust survivor Viktor Frankl famously said, "Everything can be taken away from a person but one thing, the last of the human freedoms, to choose one's attitude in any given set of circumstances, to choose one's own way." This is a sobering reminder of our capacity to choose our response to life. In the Sermon on the Mount, Jesus commands us to love our enemies. He does not say we have to feel love for our enemies, but rather that we must embrace an attitude of love towards them. Love, then, for the Jesus follower becomes something far more profound than the surges of warm feelings we have towards someone whom is easy to love. Love is something to be exercised regardless of our feelings. It takes intention, commitment, and daily, moment-by-moment practice to live out Jesus' way of love in a broken, hurting, and hurtful world. Just as Jesus says to walk in love, we can walk in gratitude as a way of life. And the reason for these high callings to practice love and gratitude is that both love and gratitude have the power to heal the world. But first, love and gratitude must work their healing in us. When we begin changing into more loving, more grateful people, we begin to see the world differently, ripe with the fullness of divine possibility. And gratitude, like any spiritual discipline, is something that takes practice. You might hear our liturgy with new ears today after all this talk of Thanksgiving. And in fact, the invitation to give thanks is always here in every Sunday service. The word Eucharist is our churchy word for Holy Communion, but it is a Greek word that literally means thanksgiving. And from the first words the priest says behind the altar, "The Lord be with you," to the great Amen, this entire portion of the service is called the Great Thanksgiving. As I ponder the story of the 10 lepers whom Jesus heals, and how only one returns to thank Jesus, I think it's fairly safe to say that many of us, myself included, don't automatically turn our attention to giving thanks. Our prayers are most often weighted towards asking for help, and we neglect to name our many reasons to be grateful. Life is hard, and our crises take over. Today, we have a special chance to practice shifting our focus while not forgetting our constant need for God's help, but prioritizing our awareness that even in times of need, everything we have is a gift from God, starting with the very breath in our lungs. To be grateful, even when we are in pain, is not an exercise in masochism. It's an exercise in opening our hearts to divine possibility that accompanies us through our pain. Sometimes it's harder to practice gratitude when things are going well, because when we are in a state of ease, we can easily forget our constant need for God and lose sight of our true interdependence with one another. Again, from the Sermon on the Mount, Jesus says, "Blessed are those who know their need of God." So in order to practice a mindful daily gratitude, we need to pause more often. We need to allow ourselves to be surprised by even the daily, ordinary, predictable things in the world that we might otherwise take for granted. Running water and food on our tables, basic things too many of our fellow human beings do not have. When we come to see everything we have as a gift, not to be taken for granted, we are living a life of gratitude. If even the smallest glimmers of joy and hope can remind us of the divine possibility that things can turn out okay, that we can rise from our lowest places, and that we can find a new way forward after loss, this is what it means to live a life of gratitude. Perhaps this is why the 13th century monk, Meister Eckhart, could say it so simply. If the only prayer you ever say in your life is thank you, that would be enough. It turns out those words our parents taught us as manners are now our most important prayer. Our lives are a gift. It is enough. Indeed, it is everything to say thank you. Amen.